Hi, welcome to iProps. My name is Andre and I am a graphic artist and content creator. I have used 2D and 3D applications for years and I want to try to give back to you guys some workflows I have developed on my own from watching others. I have a bit of a deep voice and I hope that you guys do not have too many problems understanding me. So I will try to speak as slowly and clearly as possible when I can. I currently am working on a graphic novel called WTF. It's a work in progress. One of the things I developed while creating it was a way to use Cinema 4D to create perspective guides for us digital artists. It's a very simple method and does not require you to learn any of the core functions of Cinema 4D. What we are going to learn is how to put together a scene and render out wireframe meshes and use them as perspective guides. These can then be imported into Photoshop and used as a perspective guide layer, which you can draw over and keep your artwork in perspective. So here we go. I'm not going to teach you how to use every aspect of Cinema 4D. What I am going to do is teach you how to use some of its features to our own benefit. I'm going to break this lesson up into stages, and the stages should consist of setting up the Cinema 4D comic project folder, creation of a street scene comprising of probably a house, a sidewalk, and a road along maybe with a character, and finally applying color to each asset. After that, we may do some camera and render settings and any other relevant stuff that comes up. So here we go. For the purposes of this tutorial, I will be saving my project to the desktop, to my desktop. You may save yours at any location that you wish. Even though these are basic Windows operations, I'll still cover them, right? So we're going to create some folders. Right click and go to create new folder, right? And we'll call this folder working pages. Working pages. Right. Inside this folder, we will have to make 3 more folders. Right? So let's make the 3 folders. We'll go to new folder, enter new folder, enter new folder. Alright. We're going to start renaming these folders, right? The first one, we're going to call it Photoshop Pages. Name Photoshop Pages. Alright. This should house our actual comic pages that we will be putting the renders on. And the second one, we will call it C4D Comic Assets. New rename C4D Comic Assets. Right. You know what? Let's delete this folder. Right. And inside the comic assets folder, right, we'll have 2 folders, right? New folder, right? We'll rename this and call this one scenes, right? And we'll rename this one and call this one final JPEG renders. Right. Okay. Well, now that we have a place, right, to save our project, right? I guess we can open up Cinema 4D. I'll be using R17, but you could use any version of Cinema 4D that you want to use. Right? Now, the first thing we're going to do, right, is we're going to save this untitled document, right, in our projects folder that we created, right? But what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go to File, Save. I'm going to go to File, Save Project with Assets. This is just a way of creating a folder within a folder, right? So here I have the desktop, working pages, comic assets, right? So we're going into scenes, right? And we'll save this as, alright, tutorial scene. Save. Alright. So now, anytime we have to save, we just go to File, Save. You know, just as with any other application. Okay, if we click on this cube object, we will get a flyout menu consisting of other parametric objects. When we create an object, we can adjust how big it is and how many polygons it can have. But this is not necessary, as we can change its size and polygon count as we modify it further down the road. Let's create a cube. To orbit around this object, we can use the Alt or number 3 button on our keyboard and move our mouse. So if I hold down my Alt key and move my mouse and select and move my mouse, left clicking, I can move around this object. If I select my number 3 button on my keyboard and select, I can move around the object in the same manner. To zoom, we can use the scroll key on our mouse, or we can press the number 2 button on our keyboard, select and zoom in or out. To pan, we can use the number 1 button on our mouse. Move the object from left to right in our viewport. Now, we're not actually moving the object, right? What we are moving is we are moving the scene camera in relation to the object. To actually move the object, we can do so by manipulating these 3 arrows here. These 3 arrows are called the gizmo, right? If we want to move the object in this direction, we can select the green gizmo by hovering over it, and it will turn white. Left click and move up and down. And we can do the same with the other arrows. I'm not going to go into too much detail because there are a lot of resources if you want to get real deep into this stuff. Okay. If we change from the move tool to the scale tool, right, we can scale this object as much as we want. And if we if you look carefully, you will see some tiny dots here, right? These are adjustment handles, right? By clicking on these adjustment handles, we can adjust the width and the height of this box using them. Okay. And if we want to rotate this object, we can rotate this object using this tool here called the rotate tool. We select it up here in the menu, and now we can rotate the object however we would like. By default, all objects are created at the center of the 3D world, right? And all their coordinates are zeroed out. So if we want to get back to the center of the world coordinate system where we were before, all we have to do is right click, reset to default, and select by clicking here and selecting all of these, highlighting them in yellow. Right click, reset to default, and that will reset your box back to 3D World. Now if we want to fully reset our parametric box, all we have to do is select the size values here, right click as before, reset to default, and we get it back just how it was when we first created it. Okay, and we can create a few other objects here, right? Cone, you know, we can create oil tank, not very useful, but comes in useful sometimes, because I mean, you know, you could use like a cylinder to create something basic like this, you know, because you see how heavily subdivided this is, you know, it's really hard to work with. Right, to delete an object, once we are in model mode, right, we just hit the delete key, delete, right? So sometimes you might not be able to delete an object and you might be wondering why. Well, most of the time is because you're in one of these modes and you're not in the actual model mode itself. Right? Let's create another cube. Now this panel here is called the object manager. This manages all the objects that we have in the scene, right? So we have two objects in the scene. We are able to select them here in the object manager. We're able to turn them off and turn them back on, right? And if we go down, we will see we also have an attribute manager, right? This manager has tabs that hold all of the attributes that you can use to modify this, as we were modifying the size. See the values moving. Modify the size, the segments of this cube, and some other functionality. But we really don't have to go deep into it. You know, like I said, this tutorial is going to be really basic, right? So select, delete, select, delete. Okay, moving on. Now there's another part of the interface here, right? This is for animation, and we will not be using this at all, but if you want to find out more about this, there are a lot of resources on YouTube. You can find out a lot about using this interface and doing animations and stuff. Moving on, I want us to start by creating the scene I was discussing earlier. We can do this by going to the cube and going down and selecting the plane object. In the object tab of this object, we can further adjust some of its parameters. We will make the width 400, which it already is, and we will make the height 1500 centimeters. As we can see, if I click anywhere on this object, right, I cannot modify it in any way. That's because it's a parametric object and none of the other modes are available to us right now, right? But I'm going to go back into the width segments and make it 5, and I'm going to keep the height segments at 20. Okay, we're going to make this object editable by going up to here, and where it says make editable, right, you just click here and you see the object changes color and all the edges change to blue, Either way, if you want to, if you have this grid, options, filter, grid, if you have this grid and you want to get rid of it, you just go up to filter and you deselect the grid selection here. Alright. Okay, so what we have created here will be our street. Right. Now we want to create some more topology for the line in the center, going down the center in the street, like the white line, right? So we're going to do this by going into edge mode, which is this mode up here. Right now we're in polygon mode. We are going to go into edge mode, right? We're going up to the select menu, right? And we are going down to ring selection. Okay, now we can select a row of edges, right? So we're going to select the center row here, right? We're going to right click and we're going into connect points edges, right? And we're going down into it again and connect points edges. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create some more geometry. Now this geometry will serve as the other sides of the street. Okay, so if you can imagine this row of polygons here, right, these two rows of polygons here, this will serve as our sidewalk. So what we have to do now is create more geometry for, I don't know, the ground plane where we're going to place the house. So a way of selecting an entire row of edges is you can just hover over one and double click, and here you can select the entire row. If I hold down the control button, right, select my x-axis and drag across, I will be able to extend this piece of geometry in the x direction. Right? Now what I want to do, I want to start splitting up these pieces of geometry here. Right? I want to create one piece of geometry for where our house is supposed to be, right? One piece of geometry for our road, and another piece of geometry will represent our sidewalk. Okay, so in order to separate our parcel of land here, right, from the road and the sidewalk, what I'll do is go up here and go into this live selection tool. Now this live selection tool is almost like it paints a selection on your geometry, right? So we'll paint a selection, we'll right click, and we'll go down to this command here called split. And as we see here in the objects manager, we have created another object. And what this has done, this has taken the selection and made another object out of it. So without selecting anything here, alright, or deselecting anything here, alright, I just want you to hit the delete button, and that will delete the polygons from our original plane object, so we don't have a duplicate of it. So now we have a separate object for the parcel of land, and we have a selection object for the road. Okay, so I'm going to call this here road, and I'm going to call this here lot of land. Okay, now our road object still has a couple things that I want to get from it. So I'll go into polygon mode, right? Select our live selection again, drag over these polygons I was mentioning earlier that we were going to use for the sidewalk, right? I'm going to right click, split again, see it creates another duplicate, and without selecting or messing with anything, I'm just going to hit delete. So now we have one object for the road and one object for a sidewalk, right? So I'm going to rename this sidewalk, and I'm going to rename, well, it's already called road. I don't have to rename anything. Getting ahead of myself there. Alright, so what do we do next? Okay, I think the next thing that we should do is try to create some kind of a fence, you know, a fence between the parcel of land and the road. So I'm going to go, I could cut up this again and make more geometry out of it, but I'm going to go a different way, just to have a little variation in this tutorial, right? I've created another cube, right? And I'm just going to drag the cube across where I would like the fence to be, right? I'm going to select my model mode, right? And I'm now going to close in this to give it the dimensions of some kind of a fence, right? So like I say, we wouldn't be using any exact values or anything in this tutorial. What we will be doing mostly is just eyeballing it, which to me is a lot more fun than actually typing in and trying to get actual correct coordinate systems and all of that. Okay, so I will make this fence about this long. Let me try to carry it. Alright, so I'm orbiting around. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold down my control key. Now, first of all, right, what I want to do is I want to give this some kind of subdivision, because we'll need that for the rendering process. We will need to have a good amount of subdivision. So I will subdivide this object in the Y like this, and add some subdivisions in the X to create a nice grid, you know. That should be enough. Maybe one in the center. Right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on my control key and drag across like this, right? And I'm going to use these handles to scale in this object and just drag it in, and I'm going to scale in this one further and just drag it in here to just create some kind of a gate, or a hole for a gate in the fence or something like that. I don't think we're going to we're going to be modeling any type of gate or anything like that. We're just going to stick with the fence. Okay, all right. So if I select both of these objects and I go into my basic tab, right, I will see a parameter here called name, right? If I call this fence, it will name both of the objects fence, because I have both of them selected, and since both of their parameters are the same, right, both of them are updated at the same time. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some sort of a house, right? So I'm going back up to here, select another cube object, right? I'm going to drag it across to this location. Now I didn't show you this before, right? But if you click this square in square button on the right hand side here, right, we will be able to see our other perspective views, right? So in these views, we have the top, we have the front, and we have the right, right? I want to try to get this cube in the front view on the same as our road and ground plane, on the same height as our road and ground plane. So what I will do, I will hover over its y-axis and select it and drag it up to just about as close as possible to the ground plane. Alright, I will go over here and I will click this box in box button here again and get back to my perspective view. Alright, so right now I want to give my house some width and some length, so I will drag on these adjustment handles like this, and I will drag on this adjustment handle like this. Right, it doesn't look much like a house now, but we're going to do something about that. So what I'm going to do is, with this object, I'm going to make it editable. Alright, so now we can access the points, we can access the edges, right, and then you can access the polygons. But remember what I told you before about adding detail later? That is exactly what we're going to do now. So I'm going up to my selection mode, right? I'm going to ring selection, select my edges here, right, and select this ring of edges, right, and I'm going to right click and go to connect points edges, right, and create this edge going through the middle here. I'm going up to my move tool, select that edge, right, and I'm going to drag up like this just to make something that looks something like a roof, right? Okay, so it look more like a house now. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my selection, ring selection, connect points edges. Selections, connect points edges. Right, wasn't working for a second there. I don't know what happened. Okay, now we could go this way and adding more geometry, right? But what I want to do by undoing, right, is go into my our polygon mode, right, and I want to break up this object using a command in Cinema 4D. So if I right click and I go to subdivide, you see we get almost the same effect but better, where we have a line cutting through our geometry in the center too. Now with our object still selected, right, we can go down to subdivide again, right, and create even more geometry, right? But come to think about it, I'm seeing a problem here that we could have further on, right? Now if we decide we want to put in some kind of window or a door, or drawing some kind of window or a door at the front here, you see how we have the geometry going up like this? That would give us a lot of problems to get nice straight edges and straight lines on our windows and our doors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo and undo and undo back to how the object was before, right? And I'm going to use the process I use later on down the line right here. I'm going to go and I'm going to select ring in edge mode, connect, right? And then connect points, edges again, right? And now I'm just going to drag up this, right, to look like a roof. Going back in polygon mode, select everything and go down to the command we used before, the subdivide and subdivide, right? So you see we have much better geometry here if we want to add in a door or window or something like that. Okay, so now we can rename this to house. Right. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do, and I'm going to show you a new tool, is to work on our sidewalk here. Right. You see how flat it is? We wouldn't get a good representation of a sidewalk with it being as flat as it is. So in our polygon mode, I'm going to go Control A to select all. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go into a tool called the Extrude Tool, right? This tool will extrude all the edges in whichever direction that we want to do, we would like to go, right? I want to go up, so I will give it a kind of a sidewalk height, what I'd call a sidewalk height, right? And yeah, I guess that could work. Okay, now I think that for our road, right, I think that these polygons here would be a bit too wide if we wanted to create some kind of a white line going down the center of the road. So what I suggest we do is we go into the road, use our paint selection tool, light selection tool, right, and we select these edges going around, going down the center. Deselect these by holding down Control, right? We go into our scale tool, right, and this x-axis here, we are just going to scale it in a bit on the x-axis. Yeah, that would more illustrate the size of a white line if we were to have one in this road. I mean, it's not a very big road, but you know, we just want some geometry that could give us some indication of where our white line should go. Okay, all right, now I think we should try to create some kind of something that represents, let's just move our house a little closer. Yeah, we should get something that kind of represents a tree, maybe, right? So to build this tree now, I'm going to create a box, right? I'm going to slide our box over here, right? I'm going to carry it up here. I'm going to go into the Object tab, and I'm going to increase the number of subdivisions on this object just to give it some kind of a grid. I'm going to go like 5 by 5 by 5. Now this will be a good perspective grid for us to draw like leaves, you know, on the top of our tree, right? So I think that for the trunk of our tree, I think we'll use a cylinder, right? So I'm going to go very basic with this cylinder, right? the rotation segments, I'm going to change them to 8. Caps, I'm going to take off the caps so that the top of the geometry comes off, but this is not really necessary, you know. Alright, so now if I want to get this cylinder, right, into the same location, right, as where I have this cube, what I will do is I will take my cylinder and I will just, this is called parenting, right, and I will just parent it to the cylinder by, let me do it again, by just dragging up where you see this arrow. Once the arrow faces down, that means you are able to parent, right? So when I let go, it automatically parents to the cylinder, right? And what I will do now, I will go into the coordinate system, right? Select my position coordinates. These are the rotation coordinates. We just have to select the position coordinates, and I'll right click, reset to default, right? So actually I got it a little mixed up. is the cube that's being parented to the cylinder, not the other way around, right? But that's fine, that's good. So right now I unparent them, right? And now I can drag my cube till it reaches about this much off, right? So I want my cylinder to control the cube, so I will go back and I'll parent the cube again to my cylinder, right, and just drag it up like this, right? So I will take the adjustment handle that is on top the cylinder, right? I will just select it, right, and drag it up to make the cylinder longer. I will select the cube and drag the cube up, right, and make sure it covers the hole. I will select my cylinder, right, I will go to the object mode and I will take down the radius because I don't want it that big, right? And now if I drag around the cylinder, the cube goes with it, right? So I think I'll make it a tall tree. Yeah, I'm just showing you this. I'm not too sure if I will be drawing a tree, but you know, just in case, it's nice to have, right? So earlier on I mentioned that we would create some type of character to put in our scene, right? And I think that it's good that Cinema 4D, right, they have an object called a figure object where we can use this object as a character. So we just select it and it comes in our scene, right? I will drag it over to where I want, right? I will scale it down using my scale tool, dragging in the viewport until it scales down in relation to like the size a person would be to the house, you know. I'll put it close by the door, so, right? And I'll probably scale it down a little more. Right, drag it down like this. Yeah, right, okay. So what I'll do now is thinking about our scene. I think I'll make it like this guy here. He's a robot, right, and he's trying to escape from the house, right? So I will have him jumping over the fence. So I'll select my rotate and rotate this object 90 degrees by holding down the shift to constrain it, 90, right? And dragging him closer towards the fence. Okay, so now I'll move him here by the fence and move him over the fence, right? Now, as you notice, we can't have any kind of control over this object, right? Because this object is a parametric object, right? We cannot move any of its parts. In order to do that, we have to make it editable like we did with the cube and so many other objects, right? So we make this guy editable, right? And we'll rename him to robot, right? And what we'll do is we'll right click and select children, right? That command selects any objects that are parented to this object. So we can see by this selection guide here that we have a lot of objects that are parented to this object. So if I click on this plus button here, right, I will see we have a left thigh, a right thigh, and an upper body. And if I select this other selection, this other little cross here, I will see that we go down even deeper into more objects that we can select, right? But the good thing for us is that these objects are named properly. So like if we want to rotate the shin, right, once it's selected it will be in white and we can rotate it to suit our needs, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click as I did before, select children, right? I'm going to right click again, right, and go to this command here, unfold all, and that will unfold every single object, right? When it's like this, it's folded. When it's like this, it's unfolded. So we can see every single object, right? So what do I want to mess with here? We'll start adjusting the feet first, right? I think we'll go start with the left thigh. Make him look like he's going to jump over the fence. And right thigh, he's making a big leap, right? Left upper arm, right? Okay, so this goes with the back leg, right? So down like this and across like this, and this arm will go with the front leg, so right upper arm, right, down like this and up like this, right? You know, let's try to bend this body a bit. Right thigh, upper body, right? Okay. Right. And this will be a good like foundation to draw our character, because I've actually seen little statues like these selling in certain places where you can actually use these to help you visualize what you want to draw. Alright, so let's try to find his head, right, and going to rotate it forward like this, you know, not get super detailed on this, right, up to upper arm, and, you know, this right foot, his foot, like this. I think I want his left shin to be down like this. right. Okay, let me just try some stuff here. Right, upper body. Try it like this. Head. Right. That looks more like it. Okay. So now we can right click, select children, right click, folder, and we can fold it back up. So now we can select our main controller for the character, go to our move tool, right, and just make him look like he's trying to jump over the fence here. Alright. Okay. Make him a little bigger just for the hell of it. Alright. Okay. Alright, so the next thing that I want us to do, right, I want us to start making some materials so we can start color coding these different objects, right? So I think we'll stop here for now and do that in the next lesson. Alright, so take care.